Alright guys, this marks episode 2 of Warrior Poet Profiles, and we're going to be looking towards Sparta today. So I've got Stephen Pressfield's Gates of Fire, and we're going to be looking at that. Essentially what this book's about is in 480 BC, the vast Persian Empire led by Xerxes, or in the book of Esther, it's Ahasuerus, I think is the pronunciation. So Esther's husband, Xerxes. He's kind of ruled the known world. And he brings his 2 million plus man army to the shores of Greece to wage war on all of Greece, really, but lands on this little rock called Thermopylae and the hot gates where this battle happens with just 300 Spartans and a few thousand different allied forces, the Athenians and some other forces, and they do battle against this. And it was just an epic battle, and this is true history. Stephen Pressfield makes a historical fiction. So yeah, a lot of this is fiction. He imagines different personalities and different events. But what I noticed and what really struck me about him was he was a very careful historian. So yeah, this is fiction, but the culture, the ideals, the government in general, the military might and strategy, a lot of the personality traits, courage, patriotism are all really just, he nailed it. So to get to know the Spartans in a really fun way through fiction, but actually learn good, valuable history, I think Pressfield just rocked it. Secondarily, I noticed not only was he a real careful historian, but he was also just really understood with amazing depth and clarity the inner mind of a warrior, the struggles during combat. And noticed he just keyed in on some stuff that really somebody was, viewing from afar, someone without experiential knowledge wouldn't really know. So he just nailed those two elements. So for me, I was a big fan, and I learned some good stuff about Sparta. It's really embarrassing for me that I hadn't read this many times before now, but anyway, man alive. And I would say as well, with these warrior poet profiles, the idea is to grab a certain personality and view how they're a warrior poet. With the Spartans, I could jump for King Leonidas, but throughout this book I really fell in love with the personality of a guy named Dienekes. But regardless, really all the Spartans, they kind of stood as one man. It's like a culture of warrior poets. So though I'll hit up King Leonidas and Dienekes, really I'll just be talking about Spartans in general. So anyway, I was very impressed. Some other things that Pressfield really keyed in on when it was talking about the mind and struggles of warriors was one, he nailed the sense of humor type aspect. And so I've got all these different references, and if y'all don't mind, I'm just going to, well, if you do mind, you're just going to change the channel. But on 149, this kid was getting basically beat, punished before, board of elders. And what they were looking for was this kid to basically break. And this is one excerpt. It says, the prized response, the one that peers look for, is humor. Defamation with a joke, and the coarser the better. Laugh in its face. A mind that can maintain its lightness will not come undone in war. And I think that's absolutely right. If somebody doesn't have a good sense of humor and can't laugh at their misery and laugh in the midst of terror, usually they don't have the mental, ability to really come. They're too brittle. They'll buckle when stress comes. So being able to laugh in the midst of terrible end that's right on the other side, it's a real cool thing. Another thing came from, let's see, page 371 right here. Let's see, they were running kind of this black op behind the Persian lines to try to assassinate Xerxes, the Persian king. And Dienekes, with this other war scouting party, is going around there basically traveling in the mid-waist water, and they're just miserable. They're all cut up and bloodied and limping from battle, so they could barely move. And Dienekes, kind of my hero here in the book, his leg becomes entangled in some reeds and he falls underneath, and it's really cold, and he comes up snorting, like laughing. And someone's like, hey, what are you laughing at? And he says, I was just wondering if it's possible to get any more miserable. And he chuckled darkly. I suppose if a river snake crawled up my butt and gave birth to quintuplets. And all kinds of stuff that y'all saw from the movie 300, which is not nearly as good of a count of this, but it had some really good moments as well. You see Dienekes, he's like, we were with you, sir, for Sparta. That was Dienekes, the guy who jumps really far. I think that's who it was based on. But yeah, it was. Because it's like Xerxes' army is so vast, their archers blot out the sun, meaning there's so many arrows it blots out the sun. And he's the guy that says, then we'll fight in the shade. And that kind of dark sense of humor is ever so befitting a good warrior. That mental elasticity and levity that he brings. So cool. Anyway, also dealing with fear I thought was a really good thing. It's not, soldiers, and I remember a quote by George Patton about this, Old Blood and Guts, talking about what courage was. It doesn't mean that you don't get afraid. It's what you do once you are afraid. And so even the Spartans, he didn't try to immortalize them as these fearless, stoic statues of courage. Instead, he brought a very human element that I thought was very realistic. There's this place where Dienekes is asking a couple young upcoming Spartans who are still kind of in their training. He's like, listen, hey, what defeated our foe on the battlefield? And the boy responded, our steel and our skill. These, yes, Dienekes corrected him gently, but something more. It is that. And he gestures up toward the slope to the image of Phobos. That's Greek for fear. And he says, fear. Their own fear defeats our enemies. Now answer this. What is the source of fear? And Alexander's reply faltered. And Dienekes reached with his hand, touched his own chest and shoulder, and says, fear rises from this, the flesh. This, he declared, is the factory of fear. And so Dienekes is this great warrior poet, this great warrior philosophy, plumbs the depths of fear, gets intimately aware of it. I come up, and I know this is stupid fiction, but the movie quote stuck with me. In this, one of the latter James Bond movies with Daniel Craig, he's interviewing this sex-trafficked gal, and she says, what do you know of fear? And he answers back with those blue eyes of his, and he said, it sounds like I got a man crush on him. I don't. I should totally edit that out. Shut up. All of you, shut up. Anyways, he answers back, all there is. And I thought that was awesome. He wasn't above fear either. So that was good writing right there. But anyway, I really like that. And then he begins this discussion on what is the opposite of fear. And it's meaningless to just say fearlessness. That's just playing with words. What's the true opposite of fear? And he answers that a little bit later. And as we keep going on through this little interview here, we'll deal with it. Now let's talk about why the Spartans, and particularly Dienekes and the Spartan king Leonidas, were warrior poets. One, because they're incredible fighters. That's part of the thrust here of the channel. Not just poets, but amazing fighters, skilled at violence so that we may protect people as well. So that's part of the big pillar of what we're trying to accomplish here as fellow warrior poets. It's not just a gesture, tucking a gun in our pocket and saying warrior. It's training, it's effort, it's work. And these guys were not just strong, but they were brilliant tacticians, disciplined, and students of psychology and positioning and timing and all those elements that they brought to the battlefield. Here I've got a cool excerpt that kind of captures the spirit of this. It's on page 296, and here it is, right here. Oh, that felt good. All right, let's see. Dienekes had ever declared the supreme accomplishment of the warrior to perform the commonplace under far from commonplace conditions. I think about this pretty regularly. I'll see people just run their rifles out on the range and do good things, and then you put a great amount of stress on them and they fall to pieces sometimes. It's being able to perform the commonplace, that which to many is automatic, but being able to perform that when everything is falling into chaos. Yeah, now it goes on, not only to achieve this for oneself alone as Achilles or the son of champions of yore, but to do it as part of a unit, to feel about oneself, one's brothers in arms in an instant like this of chaos and disorder. Comrades whom one doesn't even know, with whom one has never trained, to feel them filling the spaces alongside him from spear side and shield side, fore and rear, to behold one's comrades likewise rallying, not in frenzy of mad possession, driven abandonment, but with order and self-composure, each man knowing his role and rising to it, drawing strength from him as he draws it from them. The warrior in these moments, listen guys, the warrior in these moments find themselves lifted as if it were by the hand of God. He cannot tell where his being leaves off and that of the comrade beside him begins. In that moment, the phalanx, that was kind of their military formation, forms a unity so dense and so all-divining that it performs not merely at the level of a machine or a great engine of war, but surpassing that to the state of a single organism, a beast of one blood and one heart. And I thought that was really, really cool. And then it goes on, it's like, war is work. And I love that phrase. I'm going to work it into some stuff as well. But war is work. There's no mystery and magic about it. You put in the time, you put in the work, you put in the effort, you get good training, and you get better at becoming a defender. But anyway, they were incredible fighters. And so you see just some of the accounts on this, how just one of them would end up killing 50, 100 men in a battle. Just incredible, incredible warriors. The other reason why I say the Spartans and Dienekes, King Leonidas were warrior poets is because they fought for a higher purpose. When we say higher purpose, some would run to the Greek gods, and they were certainly reverential toward the gods, but not in the sense that I'm talking about usually. Typically amongst the pagans, Greek and Roman deities, the gods were something that you should placate. Hey, bring offerings to them, make sure they're not ticked off, hope we line up, give us strength. But it's not like a loving relationship where in adoration you seek to serve them, not your own will, but their will be done. It's not that kind of, so they're reverential, good thumbs up toward the gods, but really what moves them isn't that higher purpose, it's the higher purpose of country. It's patriotism. For some of them it'll be glory and honor, but really it's the state, it's patriotism, their country in general. So incredible patriots, and that's really what the Spartans their hearts beat for. Here in page 412, this is cool, and you'll get a little glimpse of King Leonidas as well, who I adore. Let's see, course. So what happened is the Spartan king, King Leonidas, was just killed on the battlefield. And the book picks up like this. Can His Majesty recall? This is the narrator of the story talking to King Xerxes as his captives. And he's like, Xerxes, do you recall what happened when you killed our Spartan king? And let's see. The Spartans hurled themselves into the teeth of the vaunting foe, flung them back to retrieve the corpse of their king. And then the narrator goes on talking to Xerxes, basically the king of the world. And this guy is saying, listen, I'll tell your majesty what a king is. A king doesn't abide with his tent while his men bleed and die upon the field. A king does not dine while his men go hungry, nor sleep while they stand at watch upon the wall. A king does not command his men's loyalty through fear, nor purchase it with gold. He earns their love by the sweat of his own back, and the pains he endures for their sake. That which comprises the harshest burden, a king lifts first and sets down last. A king does not require service of those he leads, but provides it to them. He serves them, not they him. There's this cool point, and I respect the Greeks and whatever else, but I have to think of my favorite warrior poet, Jesus Christ. The scripture says that in the Bible it says, now all authority in heaven and earth had been given to Jesus. So he stood up, took out his outer garment, tied it around his waist, and then washed his disciples' feet. There's such a degrading job to do. But he noticed the role of sacrificial authority was in service to others. You're a leader so that you can serve others. And King Leonidas got that. And I thought that was so cool. And so there was one point where a bunch of dudes from different allied forces, and they're going to build this wall before the Persians show up to keep them out. And they're showing up all these different plans, and they couldn't agree on the plans for the wall. And finally, King Leonidas gets sick of it, and he just stands up while everyone's arguing, goes out, gets a big boulder, and he just starts building a wall. And then everyone just dismisses the plans, jumps in and starts building the wall as well. And then once everyone joined in, he just kept working until the wall was his. And he's like a 60-year-old, old, tattered, scarred up Spartan. And here he is, you've been like for a warrior to live that long, I mean, it's probably because he was just too stubborn to die. It's like a first sergeant in Ranger Battalion. Now, a lot of times they're not physical specimens or anything. They're just so stubborn. Pain doesn't even try to stop them anymore. Anyway, that's funny. Let's see. There was. Anyway, they fight for their king, their sons, their wives. Pretty cool. Also, they fight for the higher purposes for virtue and for honor. Let's look at page 142. Hope you guys are still tuned in. This is fun for me. But I like reading because I'm a nerd. And reading is awesome. So Dienekes was just an incredible warrior, very, very influential. And they kept trying to promote him up through the ranks. But Dienekes said he liked the obscurity of just a simple platoon commander, he said. He felt more himself among the ranks. He refused all attempts to promote him beyond the platoon level, saying, "I can't count past 36, was a standard disclaimer. Beyond that, I get dizzy. And of course, it was a joke, but really, it says Dienekes' gift and vocation, more so than ever warrior and officer, was that of a teacher. As all born teachers, he was primarily a student. He studied fear and its opposite. And we're still waiting to answer the question, what is Dienekes' response to what is the opposite of fear? So anyway, pretty cool. I really like that. And you can see a part of why I love Dienekes. He was always so funny with witty replies where he walks up to an Egyptian who can't understand him and he smiles real big at him right before they're about to go to war. He shakes his hand. He's like, "I'll be carving your balls off." Just kind of fun little quips like that. The ranks level. Page 153 has got some more of the honor, virtue type stuff. Now there was this just like specimen called Polynicus, and he was an amazing runner, and he's kind of like a stud. And then there's Dienekes, and these two are both Spartans, but their character is in a little bit contrast to each other. So Polynicus doesn't really like Dienekes, but anyway, it says, for the runner, Polynicus saw in Dienekes neither beauty of form nor necessary fleetness of foot. Instead, he perceived a quality of mind, a power of self-possession, which he himself, for all the gifts the gods had lavished on him, could not call his own. Polynicus' courage was that of a lion or an eagle, something in the blood and the marrow, which summoned itself out of its own preeminence, without thought and glorified in its instinctual supremacy. Dienekes' courage was different, though. Listen to the warrior poet in him. His was the virtue of a man, a fallible mortal, who brought valor forth out of the understanding of his heart, by the force of some inner integrity which was unknown to Polynicus. And I thought that was really cool. Let's answer the question of fear. On page 380, it says Dienekes finally comes to the conclusion that the opposite of fear is love. And I thought that was absolutely, if y'all have seen my videos, one of the greatest attributes that can overcome fear, that can make you ferocious on a battlefield, is not because you hate what's in front of you, it's because you love what's behind you. And I've seen that in memes since then, but that's absolutely true. If you love freely, you will fight courageously. Another reason why they were fighting for a higher purpose was essentially just the Battle of Thermopylae in general was a suicide mission. And I wanted to read kind of the culmination of it all. So let's see. It starts off in page 402 where the Egyptian comes as kind of like an emissary and says, "Hey, last chance. Xerxes doesn't want to kill you. He just wants your weapons." And King Leonidas is like, "Come and get them." But he didn't say it like Gerard Butler did, I don't think, because Leonidas laughed and told them, "Come and get them." So anyway, let's see. Behind the wall, Leonidas took station before the assembly. The tricep muscle in his left arm had been severed. He would fight today with his shield strapped with leather across his arm. The Spartan king's demeanor, nonetheless, could only be described as cheerful. And that's awesome because they're completely surrounded. They're all about to get annihilated. They know they're going to die. His eyes shone and his voice carried easily with force and command. "Why do we remain in this place?" He addresses all his troops. He says, "A man would have to be cracked not to ask this question. Is it for glory?" And I do this very well because I've got my Spartan King Leonidas beard going on. It's not that epic, but you see the point? It was for this that I did this, and now I like it, so I think I'll keep it. Is it for glory? If it were for that alone, believe me, brothers, I'd be the first to wheel my butt to the foe and trot like hell over that hill. He's gone, and laughter greets him from his men. He let the swell subside, raising his good arm for silence, because this one's just kind of hanging off of him loosely. He says, if we'd save our skins today, one by one the separate cities would have caved in behind us until the whole of the Hellas had fallen. That's all of Greece. The men listened soberly, knowing the king's assessment accurately reflected reality. He says, but by our deaths, here with honor, in the face of these insuperable odds, we transform vanquishment into victory. With our lives, we sow courage in the hearts of our allies and the brothers of our armies left behind. They are the ones who will ultimately produce victory, not us. It was never in the stars for us. Our role today is what we all knew when we embraced our wives and children and turned our feet upon the march out, to stand and to die. That we have sworn and that we will perform. Our allied brothers are now on the road going home now. And he gestures down the track, the road that ran to the southern Greece in safety. We must cover their withdrawal. Otherwise, the enemy's cavalry will roll unimpeded through these gates and ride our comrades down before they've gotten 10 miles. If we can hold a few hours more, our brothers will be safe. So you see, it was a suicide errand, but they thought through the inspiration of their heroic deaths, it would send a ripple effect of heroism throughout all of Greece, and one army would now stand ready to avenge those warriors who had now, though it's slain, had risen immortal in their eyes. Also, it was to cover the retreat of the rest of the allies who could go back, regroup, and perform, having already faced and gathered great intelligence of the enemy. So anyway, these guys were warrior poets and a half. So through their example, my hope is that we would all be emboldened, that we would be strengthened as we learn from their example and we continue in our quest in heroism, in virtue, in honor, in learning the opposition or the opposite of fear. Guys, read. Hope it was helpful, guys, and I'll see you soon for episode 3 of Warrior Poet Profiles. Just so you know, if I'm not just going to Wikipedia something. I want to read books and do careful research, and so it takes me a little while to roll these out because I want to really get a good grip on something before I start doing it. And there's lots of other sources to be noted that I could reference, but I really just wanted to focus in on one, but I did my homework. So anyway, comment, like, subscribe, share. Thanks for staying tuned, and see you next time, guys.